We first met him through his sister, the Princess of Wales, when she joined the royal family all the way back in 2011. Since then, James Middleton has made a name for himself as an author and mental health campaigner, talking about his own struggles with depression and crediting his beloved dog, Ella, with saving his life. He's here to tell us more alongside Ella's granddaughter, am I right?
Oh,
it's James Middleton. That was just a quiet round of applause, James, because everyone is adoring of Nala here and just doesn't want to disturb her. She's so beautiful.
No, I think she's a bit confused about where she might be, but she's enjoying it. She's been saying hello to everybody, so...
Yeah.
So has your love of animals, or certainly dogs, been since childhood? Have you always loved dogs?
Yeah, I think if I'm really honest, I've connected with animals sort of over my life probably better than I have with humans. And I think there's something that animals don't judge you. They look at you sort of at you and not just who they think you are or want you to be, or who you should be. So they don't judge, and I think that is something that, you know, is really comforting for somebody like me.
Yeah. But it is a huge thing, and you've written a book about it. Here it is, Meet Ella, Nala's granny. The dog who saved my life. Did she really save your life?
So Ella was one of those dogs who, you know, I'll only ever have one Ella. I'll never try and replace her. She was extremely special to me during a really pivotal part of my life when I was going from sort of, you know, a boy, so to speak, or a teenager, all the way through to adulthood, and saw me get married and passed away just before we found out that my wife was expecting. And the journey that we went on was huge, and I think at the beginning, when I picked her up as an 8-week-old pup, I thought that I would be sort of looking after her, but actually, in turn, she was the one looking after me for those 15 years.
Mm. So what age were you when you got Ella?
So I was at university, my first year at university, so I was about 21.
Right. Oh. And did you get Ella because you felt you needed this companion?
Yeah, I was pining for a dog pretty much since I could talk. We didn't have a dog growing up, but we then had a family dog. Just as I was heading off to boarding school, we had a family dog called Tilly. And then ever since then, I really wanted to have a dog of my own. And I think it was really just the ability to share adventures together and have something that I was responsible for other than myself. And I think when you take the pressure off yourself and you're inadvertently looking after somebody else, then it actually helps you look after you as well.
And also in those moments where maybe there are times when you're so down you don't even want to get out of bed, they're the reasons why you have to. You know?
No, and that's, you know, why I credit Ella to save my life. There were some very dark days when the anxiety was making me sort of not be able to sleep, but the turmoil that was going in my mind, I just wanted to shut it off. And actually the ability just to, you know, it might be pouring with rain or freezing cold, but you still have to put a coat on and get outside. And that blast of fresh air or cold air or warm air, whatever it might be, but was just an ability to take yourself out of that moment and see a dog charging around happy and enjoying it gives you that little serotonin rush that I think really helped me.
James, there was obviously you went through quite some dark moments, you know, in your childhood and in school, but I read that you had like a reflection journal. You used to write things down. How important is it for you to now look back at those parts and see where you was at and how far you've come?
It was a really important time. I think, you know, for me, trying to process, you know, sometimes your mind can be your own worst enemy, and I didn't understand my own thoughts. And so by writing them down and using this journal, which was a huge help. And I think, you know, actually in writing the book, I referred back to it.
How old were you when you started the journal?
It was actually not... I was quite a bit older in the sense that I was, you know, it was when I started to realise that I was not feeling myself.
Yeah.
I sort of started to lose recognition of who I was. So I was writing things down to myself. I would write them, Dear James.
Yeah.
You might not understand this now when you reread this, but this is how you're feeling at this moment. Because I think sometimes, you know, I would go to dark places and not know, not recognise myself. And I think that's the most terrifying thing, was that I lost my own identity.
I think knowing a little bit about where you went to school, do you think that it was tough going to a school where so much emphasis was placed on sport and you weren't a particularly sporty person? And I was kind of feeling for you then, that they would try, you know, you would try all these different sports, but then it made you just feel was?
I reckon I was really privileged in my school upbringing. I have no criticisms in that. I think the challenge that I had was that there was expectations of you are perhaps a round hole. And for me, I was a square peg. And for me, I felt like the edges of me were trying to be shaved off to force me through this funnel or this round hole, rather than just accept me as a square peg, where exams perhaps didn't reflect my knowledge base. So on paper, I was failing.
Yeah.
And so I was made to feel like a failure.
There's so many young people who relate to that, I think.
And I think, you know, I jokingly say now, but I didn't feel it at the time. But I don't think I've ever failed an exam. I think exams have failed to bring the best out of me and help me sort of, you know, being dyslexic and later in life finding out that I had attention deficit disorder. And I love the fact that I've got labels, because it's something that now in everyday life I can use tools that I've learned to try and...
Were you able to express your feelings to your family? It can be difficult when people are so close.
I think that was the hardest thing, and it's something that, again, why I wanted to write the book was because it is a two-sided thing in many ways, that it can be harder. The hardest people I found to speak to were my family, my closest friends and my family. And in a way, I think there was perhaps an embarrassment. There was a stigma in myself about saying I've had such a privileged upbringing. I don't, you know, how could I possibly have depression? What do I have to be depressed about? But the more I learnt about it, the more I understood that it is an illness. It's a cancer of the mind. It can consume you so much. And I, on the outside, looked, as I do today, I hope I look normal, but on the inside, I was burning up. So I disguised it a huge amount, but it did get to the point where my family, who do know me very well, and my friends knew that there was something up, and the more they tried to reach out, the further I would sort of, or the more I became a recluse. And only after therapy and chatting a lot that it was sort of suggested that my family got involved, and I'm so grateful for their patience in when the timing was right, that they were there. They didn't just give up and say, OK, deal with it yourself. And I think that's something that's so important, is that everybody's journey into mental health, everybody's journey is different, and something that can affect one person won't necessarily affect another. And so there's not really a rule book, but being supportive and I think being knowing that somebody is there if you need them is always helpful.
Well, yeah. And you mentioned, of course, reaching out to someone beyond your immediate circle, which you find helpful. And, of course, we're going to be talking about this today, and we're going to meet somebody now who has done just that.
No, I think for me it was something that I really... that I understood my therapist as being a translator. They were able to understand the thoughts that were going on in my mind and able to sort of help translate those thoughts into conversation, but also into other people around me who could also understand what I was going through.
Yeah.